was like, man, why I'm not seeing my screen in my other screen?
Black kid was about 5 or 6.
My bad.
Shoved my son out of the way to get on the water slide. Okay? My son did nothing. Shoved him out of the way a second time, came back. My son's 2-3 years, which is a big deal at that point. And then at one point I look over, Mom, no dad. And I just go like, hey, he's being aggressive. Okay, comes back the third time. Separate, I go, hey, hold on, you have to wait in line. You know what my son said? My son said, well, Daddy, you know what, maybe he's in a real hurry. We should let him go. That was a different interaction. That kid kept doing it to every other and it wasn't the only one. And you know why? Because I've taught my kid, hey, you're going to have people who look different from you, and it doesn't matter, you treat them well. That kid wasn't. And I'm telling you, along with the empirical, anecdotally, if you have a young white person who has these interactions on a regular basis, and I'd be lying to you if I said they were uncommon, while being told they need to shut up because of systemic discrimination, you're going to create a generation of racists.
I get it. But that child was poorly parented, too.
I agree. All the time.
Hey, Steve, that child was poorly parented. There's no way in the world. His mother shouldn't have intervened and whipped his the first time.
No. The dad did nothing, Steve?
The dad wasn't there.
There was no dad. That's to say that
Mom, no dad.
Now I say because it's not a race thing. The dad, him and I looked and were like, dude, I get it, right? We're both tired. But here, this kid, I don't know, maybe the dad wasn't there. His mom didn't. And he shoved my son out of the way 3 times.
But poor parenting, though.
Yeah.
That's not a
all the time.
That's what I was about to say. It's poor parenting everywhere. And that creates individuals that grow up to be grown up individuals.
Let me give you one.
And some of those individuals end up getting positions of power.
Well, see, can I interrupt one thing real quick?
Yeah.
Actually, because I like the thing about choices. And you were talking about the federal
By
department.
the way, the whitest
I'm sorry. But I'm sorry, there's a couple things. You said you ended up in and so you don't have to worry about things that people in South.
No, I said I've been afforded some things.
Afforded?
Yeah.
Why? How are you afforded that? You just happen to land
No,
here?
I sacrificed some things to live in.
Correct.
Right.
You made good choices.
I made choices. I
And when
made
we talk
choices
about
that,
and we talk about educational standards.
but I also had opportunities available to me too that some people didn't have.
Of course, everyone has a different lot for sure.
Right.
Sure.
But you were talking about educational standards. Why is it that the Asian kid does 3 times to 4 times as much homework than the black kid, and the white kid does 2 to 3? Why?
Because it's culturally, it's conditioned.
Exactly.
So why is it better parenting from Asians than white parents? Why?
You said what?
Man, this is, oh my goodness. I know Steven Crowder wants to talk. Let this guy with the hat cook a little bit and see where we can get from there.
Why is there better parenting? What he's trying to say is, you said bad parenting.
Well, I said,
so why is there better parenting from Asians and white parents?
Yeah, culturally, the educational mindset, culturally, when among Asians, they're taught from young that's primary.
Sure.
Over anything else, entertainment,
also obeying the law,
how you dress, none of that matters.
And it's
up here matters.
right, and they're also about 3 to 4 times more likely to have a father in the household than a black.
That too.
Why is this disproportionately affecting this one community? Because I have a question because I actually have my uncle. My aunt's married to a black dude, one of the most accomplishment of all time. Helicopter pilot, National Park Ranger, served his country, has a Ferrari in the driveway, right? He wears, crew socks, so we can forgive him for some things. But my whole life I've had this great black role model in my life. But then I try to ask questions, and I have a hard time asking him because I don't want to upset that relationship.
You're being responsible with your work.
So I want to ask now,
You guys notice that? You guys notice that? You're being responsible for your word, telling you you better be careful what you're saying. That's what he's trying to say. You better be careful what you're saying. That's crazy, man. He didn't notice, but that was simply him checking him and letting him know, you have to be careful what you're saying.
Like you're in the Third Reich.
I'm not even going to take that out. But then if you talk about there's no power. Well, we were talking about Charlotte, and you said the black activist judge. Well, in Charlotte, it's not just the black activist judge. It's the DA that's black that instituted those policies. It's a black mayor. So could we at least agree, before the Civil Rights Movement and now, do blacks have more or less institutional power?
There's been some bad and some good that came
We have
along
less
with the
institutional power, but
Before the Civil Rights Movement?
But you know what we don't have? As a community, we don't have the unity.
Well, here's the problem we have.
So the last thing I want to ask.
I want to ask you a question before you say the last thing.
It kind of all throws together, and I'll just let you go.
Okay, go ahead.
Why was the black community one of the fastest growing economic demographics in the country? Why were there tons of fathers in the household? Black people were becoming great role models and integrating into society naturally. And now it's substantially worse
You know why it's
than
worse?
it was before Martin Luther King.
You know why it's worse?
Yeah.
Because of the fact that and I'm gonna say this openly because I can't get into the specifics, but I work for an entity that I was flabbergasted to learn this. All right, and what we do is we provide Medicaid, right? And this is a former campaign I worked on, and I was awestruck when I would have white.
You say I like black men, if you know what I mean. I don't know. That's Jack and Whiskey with the $2 super chat. I don't know what you mean by that. I don't know what you mean by that. You like black men.
Females that would call, and they would call on behalf of their entire family, which included the husband, right? So many people say, well, you know, the welfare queen is having more children because she gets more of more food stamps. Well, here's how it really works, and I can tell you this from firsthand knowledge, right? Let's say I've got a household of a wife and a husband, and I've got 4 kids. That household can earn up to $6,900, right? And here's what happens. Even if the husband is in the household, many times they're self-employed. So, of course, you
Yeah, I think so. You're right.
can skew the numbers any way you want. And you and your family will continue to get full health care. A black mother is always told if there's a man in the house, number one, then it's a no-go, okay? Look at the Section 8 Housing Authority. Now, here's what happened, and you want to know what happened, what caused
I agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah, what caused the problem in black America. What
Yeah.
caused the problem in black America is the fact that when the father became absent in the home, right? When he became absent in the home, it left the mothers to bear the brunt. So to answer your question, do we have more influence in some areas? Perhaps, but ask yourself this. Do we have more influence economically? Because if you go back and you look, if you go back and you look prior to the civil rights movement, let me tell you something right now. You had more black carpenters and tradesmen all over the place.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, that's right.
This guy just rambling. He doesn't even know what he's saying. He's just rambling he's basically talking from both sides of his mouth. He's not gonna land the plane. He's gonna filibuster and say that before the civil rights movement they were much better, but today we have it worse. Post civil rights, like he just want to filibuster.
The problem is, again, if you agree with that, then you'll agree with the fact that if it had not been for the change in the systemic dynamics, that black men would still be in the home or what have you.
Right.
And the black
So
would still be there.
federal government policy has not been instituted to help black people ever, but really to make them dependents of the state when they were doing just damn fine without the federal government that you want in more people's lives.
The only reason why
It's almost like reparations would be the same thing.
My question to that is, why is that a problem for white America? And we were already...
Because it's one country.
Because it's what?
We are one country, and the problems of one community...
We're not one country. We're an entity. We're a corporation. The United States is a corporation. It's not a country.
Yeah,
Oh my
certainly
god,
is.
that's a dumb statement. I don't know if I'm gonna just react to the entire thing, man. I don't know if I'm gonna really. I don't know. It's gonna be very tiring. The United States is not a country; it's an entity. Yo, that's the stupidest statement I ever heard all day, man. Like, it's a country. I don't even think he understands what he's saying. I'm being truthful.
Well, with that attitude, we can never be a country. If that's the attitude that people have.
Because it's not a country. It was never built. It's written in the Constitution. It's a corporation.
That is definitely not written in the...
That is not written in the Constitution. That's just not true.
It's not a country. So what I'm saying is, when we were black people in our own communities thriving, like you said, doing our own thing, why was that a problem for white America? We were doing our own thing. Why did y'all come and burn down the Wall Street, Black Wall Street? We had our thing going. Why is it an issue when we have our own thing going?
I just checked it out. Is corporation mentioned in the Constitution? No, corporation are not mentioned in the U.S. Constitution. There you go, debunked.
Mind our business.
That's stupid.
White America comes in and figure out a reason to, oh, that's wrong. Y'all are doing something wrong. That's not by the code. That's not by the rules.
No one here is trying to justify clear racist policies of the past or racism of the past. Of course that existed. No one was arguing that.
Here's the thing.
We're not arguing.
That's not true. That's just you using metaphors that make no sense. International mall, not a real nation. We are a real nation. We are a republic. We have a system to just control border. We are a nation. If you think something else, I don't know what to tell you. You have to just go back and just figure out what you're talking. Like, he accidentally got a point. America is an international mall. You have to really explain that, because I don't know what you're saying. not a real nation. So why are we? We are not a nation. What,
It sounds like
so
you're saying that
what is a real nation? What is it a real nation?
Want racial segregation because you're
I
saying
don't want racial segregation. We asked for equality. We didn't get that.
But you're saying your own community doing your own thing.
Do our own thing.
Are you saying that we should be separate communities? That's what I'm asking. Are you saying we should be separate, white and black?
Jackass with the $2 super chat. Thank you so much. I prefer light. I'm not gonna read that. Thank you so much for super chat.
Communities. That's what it sounds like a little bit.
Separation may be the answer.
Okay. I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah, separation could be the answer.
What if a white person says that? Is it racist?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But I think we should
Just make sure that we keep that conversation regarding the.
But if you're saying it in a narrative that we are a threat to you guys, so that's why we're going to be separate.
But you just said that white people are a threat to black people. That's what you just said. So why can't white people say it? And I don't think separation is the answer.
I didn't say that. I said you guys find a problem with everything that we do.
If separation is the answer,
yeah, well, reparations, come on with it.
So who gets the reparations?
The whole black community.
Smiley, I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't know. International or an international? Most strong and most lethal military. Think about it. I don't know what you're talking about.
The people that have been wrong for so many years.
America.
The government that's taking from us.
Hey, Ukraine. I ain't never personally asked you.
You don't have to tell me twice.
yeah, I agree with you.
Like, why are we paying that?
Right, so
I agree with you. How about we pay none of it and let people make their own decisions?
Money would just go back to reparations. That's the system.
To answer the question of who should pay,
Yeah.
the federal government should be on the hook for some of that. But every single company that benefited from chattel slavery, all the insurance companies, all the freight companies, all of those companies that existed then, that still exist now in some name, shape, or form, they should have to pay into that because they all profited for it. Just think about this.
Yep.
You insured a slave. When you bought a slave, you got insurance on that slave. That insurance company made money off of that. And they built up into
what percentage of the workforce in the United States do you think were actually slaves here in this country? Because that might.
I don't know what the percentage was, but I know all the hard work. I know who did all the hard work.
No.
I know
you know what? You just said the railroads. You just said the railroads. Why aren't the Chinese immigrants asking for reparations?
Because they've already been gifted what they were going to give.
You did what?
We did it for them.
You did it full?
For them.
Smiley, I'm not understanding what you say. My point is, we are a nation. We ate one of the strongest nations on this planet. Are you? I don't know what you're saying. I really don't know what you're saying.
The Chinese built the railroads. The Chinese were slaves. They built the railroads.
We did that for them.
No. The Chinese were the majority of the slaves building railroads.
Now, on
they
the
didn't get reparations. They don't want it.
Well, I tell you what. Next time we'll have you a Chinese dude in here, so you can ask him that. I don't give a I'm talking about black people.
Can you guys deal with the straight hair like that?
Yeah, actually, yeah. That's another misconception that we get all the time, too.
We can cut any kind of hair. But we're talking about what black people... Hold on. We're talking about where the money's supposed to come from. It's companies that are trillion-dollar, billion-dollar companies that started in the 1600s, 1700s, that are still around, and they benefited and profited immensely from that.
What if it's a company that never had slaves? Should they pay reparations?
No, not that the company had slaves, but we had companies that insured slaves. You had companies that transported slaves.
But what if it's a company that did none of it? Should they pay?
No, if they didn't have anything to do with chattel slavery, no, they shouldn't.
Neither did I.
Companies that should.
But let me say this.
But your grandfather.
But you understand the point?
But if your grandfather was here in the United States, I don't know. You said you from Canada. I don't know. We're not worried about it. We're worried about the people.
What if your grandfather was a slave owner and mine wasn't?
My grandfather was.
What if he was? But my point is, what if he was?
That's a good argument. That's a great argument. What if your grandfather was a slave owner? Because there was black slave owners as well. There were a couple of them. That's a great. My
father was a sharecropper in Plaquemine, Louisiana, in a little small town called Bayagula. So he was 2 generations removed from slavery. So I know I have a root in slavery.
Okay.
Somebody owned my great-great-grandfather.
What if I have no root in slavery?
Well, you don't owe nothing. You don't owe anything. Your grandfather, if your grandfather from Canada, he wasn't down here owning slaves.
Okay, I'm just trying to. So then people who didn't own,
down here telling
we don't pay reparations.
He owed money.
But Steve,
here's what I'm telling you. Hold on a second. Here's what I'm telling you. If you're to go through the numbers, so do we agree? If I have no connection to slavery whatsoever, that I don't owe.
You, Steve,
me.
You don't.
We agree.
Don't.
Okay.
You
So
don't.
do you realize that you could take all the white people in this country, and if you're going to add up everyone where you could actually trace the lineage to slave owners or had any involvement, you would end up with maybe 2 or 3%. 2 or 3%.
He said nations come from the word nature. What? Brett, that's not what a nation is. That is not what a nation is. That is not. Lord, we don't behave as a nation, then what do you think we behave as? Yeah, that's a great question, Smiley.
Percent of white people in this country.
There go them numbers.
They use these words like, yes, a mall, the corporation, all that stuff, not even understanding what those things are. They just put them all together just to make some kind of sense. But they're not.
Entire
You
salary,
throw out
it
there
wouldn't
go
give you
them
reparation.
numbers.
Yeah, we are a country. We have nationalism. We have a culture. We have history. We have borders. We have institutions, and we have a political system. That's what makes a country a country.
Hey, Stephen,
There go them
Most of us have nothing.
Somebody did it.
Can I fairly-
Somebody did.
Yeah,
And somebody
Africans
owed.
sold them into slavery.
Somebody owed.
It's still going on right now.
Somebody owed.
There are more slaves on earth right now than ever. Did you know that?
Steve, let me ask you a question.
Let me ask this
Let me ask you a question. We're not gonna really get to the heart of it. Let me ask you this. Are you aware of what's going on with McDonald's right now?
McDonald's, the company?
Yeah, McDonald's the company.
I'm aware they can't get my fillet of fish right anytime I go.
Let me tell you what's really happening. I got a friend of mine who currently has 5 McDonald's locations, right? So there are many times he says, Cedric, sometimes I've got to get up at nighttime to go and check, even if the chiller goes out, right? So I said, man, why is that so? What's really happening? He said, Cedric, what happens is there are most black franchisees, right, that own these McDonald's. He said, we have to get them in the most low-performing areas, right? Never mind the fact that we make the same investment up front to purchase one of those McDonald's, right? So when you talk about that, let's look at the systemic and institutional biases that are involved just in that. You tell me I got to pay you $1 million to get a McDonald's, right? Same thing as my white counterpart. But yet, I'm relegated to take a McDonald's in an area that's probably highly impoverished. I've got to keep coming up with all kind of gimmicks to keep the foot traffic coming through the stores. Where nobody talks about that.
Well, what
So
about
as
the
you
flip
can see,
side of it?
I don't know how is that an argument. I don't know how is that even an argument. I don't know what he was saying. He's probably saying he doesn't want to really admit that probably those areas are very dangerous. I don't know why he want to. He's identifying kind of a problem, but he doesn't want to identify the problem.
What happens on the flip side?
What about the flip side of it? What about the fact that you have the government that has grants that they invest in black-owned businesses that don't happen for white people?
Let me ask you this, Steve. It's funny you.
Does that even it out?
But no. But here's
Because that exists.
Here's something you keep saying. You say that these grants exist for black people, but let me ask you.
Okay.
Jack of Whiskey with another $5 super chat. When I got back from Iraq, I was effed up in the head. I was a semi-pro in Key West for about 2 years. And I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, hopefully you're getting the help that you need. Yeah, but a lot of people that come from, especially from the hopefully you're getting help, man. Hopefully you're getting help. But yeah, a lot of people that are veterans, they're, from Iraq in particular, they're not well. I'm sorry to hear that.
But my point is actually both sides of that coin, right?
Yeah,
That
okay.
exists for a
So we'll
reason.
go there.
Why? What's the reason?
The reason is based on what he's saying. That's why it's an
Right,
appropriate.
that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying, if you use his example of the McDonald's,
Okay.
what would be the reason for relegating the black owners to the low
Well, first
income
of all,
neighborhoods?
I don't know. I'm not able to verify that all that's factual.
But that's-
I know. Were you
I'm just
told you
saying,
could only open here in nice?
Huh?
Were you told you could only open here in a nice?
Well, this is Steve's shop, but no.
Okay. But my point is,
But see, you have
it's
to
not
understand
just
something.
McDonald's.
Before
My
you
point
answer
on the
that
flip
question, you
side,
have to
though,
understand something. There's a difference in McDonald's and what have you.
Yeah,
Because the way that
McDonald's
structure, the way
has a
that
whole
hierarchical
different
structure
I
runs,
get it.
they will designate.
Jack of Whiskey or not $2 super chat. I own McDonald's stocks. Best investment in either. They're very conservative. They're very conservative when it comes to the stocks. Very conservative.
You certain areas of
secure
what have
stock, I
you
agree.
that you will be awarded a location in. You just don't have the right to say, okay, I'm paying $1 million.
That's the same for everyone. That's the same for everyone. I know a guy. Well, he just died not too long ago. He had a bunch of which I don't know how they're still around. It's disgusting. But
Neither do I.
He had. It's awful. I have never had a good meal at. But he had to be in certain too because they had to displace his franchise investment.